What's up, Derrick? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, guys. I just got back from going downtown to yell at some statists for some of my free time today at City Council. So
Nice.
just got back from that and sitting down for the night. So happy to chat with you guys a little bit about whatever you want to get into. I see
Did
that
you
the
did you bust a rap Alex Stein style?
no, I haven't tried that approach yet.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. Hey, I don't know if Mitch told you or not, but the hosts are bound by a 2-drink minimum. I don't know if you participate in such activities, but you're welcome to join us.
Oh shit! Well, thanks for letting me know, and definitely don't feel inclined to limit yourself on my account.
Oh, I am not going to. No, it's a minimum,
no.
sir. It's not a maximum.
Okay, it's a minimum. Perfect.
It's
There
a
you go.
minimum.
Yeah,
We got to
exactly.
get through 2 tonight before the show's over.
Yeah,
That's
no
even
worries.
better.
Yeah, no worries. Mitch, do you want to take it away? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Derrick?
Yeah, I
Who the
guess
hell
I'll.
is this guy?
Yeah, I've known Derrick here for quite a while. He's done quite a lot of good stuff in the Liberty movement. He ran for mayor of, was it Austin or was it Houston? Help me out.
Houston.
He ran for mayor of Houston. He's written a great book called The Conscience Resistance. Anything else that I could add on there that maybe I'm leaving out? Because I feel like I'm leaving out quite a bit.
I could show myself for a moment if you want me to do that.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
do
please.
that. Let's do that.
Show away.
Okay,
Famous
cool.
plugs.
Yeah, so as Mitch said, I'm originally from Houston, where I'm at right now, but I actually live in Mexico now. For the last 15 years, I've been first an activist in Houston, doing everything from confronting politicians and building a community space. We built community gardens. We did skill shares. Pretty much always focused on solutions. And after a couple years, I was leaked some information from a Houston Police Department officer telling me that I was under surveillance by the Criminal Intelligence Division, and that sort of led my way into investigating what the heck that means for what surveillance tools I might be under surveillance by, and that kind of set me on a path of from activism to journalism and taking journalism more seriously, and that's been my path now for about 11 years. I write articles for the website The Last American Vagabond. I've written and worked for a lot of different people in the independent alternative media. As Mitch said, I've written a few books. The Conscious Resistance Trilogy, I think my most recent and relevant one is called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which focuses on what the title implies. I am concluding a 17-part documentary series called The Pyramid of Power. That's at thepyramidofpower.net. We just released chapter 15. We got a couple left. And that basically tries to answer the question of who really runs the world from a non-conspiratorial, fact-based, no speculation perspective, and that's available. As Mitch was also saying, I've been involved in and around the voluntarist, anarchist, libertarian movement, both locally in Houston and internationally for about a decade, and I've kind of focused on, I'm kind of in my own lane, I guess you could say. I mean, I'm very much apolitical and focused on just building the movement one by one person. And as my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, illustrates, the strategy I promote is called Exit and Build, and it's really built on top of the ideas of Samuel Edward Konkin III, of agorism and counter-economics. I co-founded the Freedom Cell Network, which is a website, a network that helps people find other like-minded people locally. I co-founded something called the Greater Reset, now called the People's Reset, in 2020. That was a response to the World Economic Forum's Great Reset Initiative, and it's just a 5-day solutions-focused event that we host in person in Mexico and for free online that brings people together to talk about mental, physical, spiritual health, permaculture and growing food, building parallel systems, educational models, etc., getting off big tech, and building free and conscious communities. I've got some land in Mexico. I'm building an intentional community eco-village called the Conscious Agora out there with about 10 other families, built around the principles of individual liberty and permaculture and mindfulness. My message kind of is, part of it is about the intersection of liberty and spirituality, sort of the search for deeper meaning beyond just the world of the 5 senses. And my journalism is more focused on, as I said, digital technology, investigating so-called conspiracies, and trying to do so from more of a grounded perspective than some people might see on other channels. And so, yeah, that's what I do. I've been doing it for 15 years.
You talking shit about our channel?
Yes.
No, not your channel. I was thinking of Alex Jones is what I was thinking of.
This is.
oh my God, you hurt my feelings.
Rob, to be fair, we did have a guy on who claimed that gravity didn't exist.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to go down the rabbit holes too. I have no problem with going down rabbit holes.
Wait, who said gravity didn't exist? Was that a joke?
That was
Flat
Jeffrey Hunt.
Earthers.
Yeah.
Jeffrey
Well,
Hahn.
yeah.
Well, Jeffrey Hahn wasn't a flat earther, but he did have this whole thing about the way we look at gravity isn't the way that it's supposed to. Like it was this
Did he
whole.
say that on the show, or is that
Yeah,
just
he said
something?
that on the show.
You're
So
gonna have to go
wait.
back and watch
Yeah.
like
Wait.
episode
You must
4
have
and
been
wait.
3 drinks in.
So wait,
Yeah.
So wait,
So you
Jeffrey
can't go
Hahn
with the
comes on the
record.
show, says gravity's not real. That doesn't matter. Rob says allegedly COVID has some side effects, and that whole episode gets deleted.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hahn. Pretty sure Jeffrey Hahn got flagged a little bit too. Oh wait,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the same
no.
episode. On the same episode, yeah,
But your comment is the one that got it banned.
yeah, yeah. It is.
That's
It is
I'm
what it
saying.
is.
Yeah, whatever.
It's YouTube for
Anyway,
you.
yeah, you do a really great job. Mitch recommended you a while back, and before you were coming on the show, he recommended that we watch The Finder's Cult. So I had to hunt that
Cool.
down and find that. That was awesome. I think you did a really good job on it. I'd never heard of it before. Apparently, a bunch of people stole your shtick and they made their own videos. So, but
Yeah, it happens.
no, but you did a great job on it. I saw a post you made recently too about evergreen content and how important that is. And I think like stuff like that is really. I think you nailed it with it. And it
Yeah,
was
I mean,
good.
I made that documentary in 2019. I started researching it after I put out a documentary about Epstein back in
Yep.
2018. So that was about a year before most people knew who Epstein was and he was arrested and stuff. And actually, I mentioned the Pyramid of Power series. The episode we just released last month is called The Pedo Class, and it's about the pedophilia issue. And there's like a 7 or 8 minute segment that's about the finders, and it's kind of a recap of my previous documentary, but it also has it's kind of like an addendum. It has some new material because after that documentary, I actually was able to interview the weird creep in there, Robert Terrell, a second time, and he wasn't happy after he saw the documentary.
Well, you say weird creep, but I thought like he kind of like personalized the story for me. Like it seemed to me like maybe he's like a useful idiot in the group. I don't know. You've met him a couple of times. Maybe you can say that that's your perspective or not. I don't know if the other guys. I know Mitch has watched it. I don't know if anyone else has watched it. But when I watched when him talking about the cult or the group as he called it, it didn't seem like maybe he was unaware of what was going on. But you say he's creep. Is he? You think he knows what's going on and he's shilling for it? Or?
I definitely, I honestly haven't been able to make like 100% firm conclusion on Terrell, but if you recall the interview I did with him, he said that he shared the toothbrush with Marion Petty. So
yes.
For those who haven't seen it, you can go to theconsciousresistance.com/thefinders and see the whole thing. I've also I have a Finders archive, which has everything I ever produced, all of my, like the police documents, everything that I uncovered, which is on a mega file for anybody to download. But he told me in that interview that he was like the right-hand man, literally sharing the toothbrush with Marion Petty. And Marion Petty was the founder of the Finders, who comes from naval intelligence and who had all kinds of interesting, shady connections. So it's hard for me, for somebody to like say he had no idea what was going on when he literally is saying he shared the toothbrush with the main guy. I mean, he could have still been in the dark, I guess.
In terms of what was going on, for the benefit of the audience and anyone who hasn't seen it yet, can you give like a brief synopsis of what the Finders Cult was and what the documentary exposed?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I picked this story up after I was just finished doing a documentary on Epstein, and I had been hearing whispers about this group called the Finders. This is back 2018, so fall, September 2018. And I happened to be in Florida for a talk I was doing, and so I went to Epstein's house and I filmed a scene out there. And I knew that I was going to start researching the Finders next, and I happened to be very close. I was able to find the address of this man, Robert Terrell, and was able to sit down with him and hear this whole story. Up until that point, like when I first interviewed him, I didn't really even fully know the story. I just knew like this is probably a good chance that I don't need to pass up. But the Finders story happened in 1987, February 1987. The kind of mainstream version is 2 well-dressed men were caught at a park in Tallahassee with 6 kids who were described as disheveled with bug bites on them, looking confused. They didn't understand modern technology from that point. And somebody saw them and, got worried and called the cops. The cops come show up. One of the men tries to faint and act like he's, passing out. They eventually arrest both of them on suspicion of child abuse. They go through the van, and in the van they find like some basically early computers and notepads and all kinds of weird things. And this arrest set off an international investigation, which did make mainstream news at the time. I mean, going back what is that, almost 40 years now to
Yeah.
the 80s, Washington Post and New York Times, Associated Press, all those outlets were reporting way more than they do now as far as factual information, at least for a brief moment. And so this made mainstream headlines everywhere saying, cult with potential ties to human trafficking and accusations of satanic activity. And of course, this is the late 80s, which people often term the satanic panic. And, I have thoughts on that we can talk about later. But it did create international news, mainstream national news. Within a couple of days, the mainstream version, they claim this was all a big mistake. There's nothing to see here. The parents have been reunited with their children, that these people were just part of some eccentric cult group that was living in Washington, D.C., that they had an apartment in D.C., they had a farm in Virginia, and that they just lived alternative lifestyles, that they were kind of early proponents of homeschooling and unschooling, and it was just a big mix-up and our bad. And then within a couple of weeks, that's what the news starts to report, is that it was a big mistake, big misunderstanding, and then it goes away. And then 3 or 4 years later, early 90s, 91, 92, there were a couple of senators, congressmen who continued to speak up about this and said they believed that there was a cover-up going on. It made news again, and then the Department of Justice they investigated themselves, and they said, whoops, nothing to see here.
Yeah, of course.
And as far as, of course, as far as the mainstream version goes, that's when it all ended, 1992. It's over and done. They investigated. There's nothing to see here. So that's what all I was hearing is this story of some old cult. And then the more I started to actually look into it and go back and find some of the people who were involved, many of whom are still alive, and just kind of chase down these different rabbit holes, which eventually led to my documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. It was very clear to me that this was such an obvious cover-up in a number of different ways. And as I said, the main 3 accusations against this group, which numbered in the 40s, at least 40-something people, but we really ultimately may never know, because even the name the Finders was kind of a name that was sort of put on them. They claimed that they would get finder's fees, that they claimed that they were just hippies and former investigators and reporters that would get finder's fees for finding information and sharing that with people, and that they had kids and lived this free kind of lifestyle, but that they weren't involved with anything. That's their official story. To this day, the living members say it was just a big mix-up. It's all this conspiracy theories on the internet. They were accused of connections to the CIA. They were accused of connections to satanic activity, and then they were accused of human trafficking or child trafficking. And for my, it's been 6 years now since I've been investigating them and stayed up with the former members. I would say that the evidence I feel is the strongest, which we absolutely have 100% documentation from police and government.
Got the documents.
We got the documents. Is the CIA intelligence connections, without a doubt. I mean, I literally have a document that says summary official report from the Metropolitan Police Department in DC, where one of the first couple lines, this officer says this was a CIA operation. There's another line where they say they believe that it was a CIA operation that had, quote, gone rogue. And they were described as some type of disinformation service that may have been used by the CIA to one degree or another to spread false information or to spread certain information. And so those definitely 100%, that's documented. That anybody who denies that, like Vice News and other try to continue to this day, is just not looking at the facts. And then from there, as far as the trafficking, I definitely think there was absolutely strong evidence of that. A couple of pieces of evidence would be, so once they do this initial arrest, and the men go to jail, and there's, they're investigating it further. The DC police contacts the Florida police where the men are being held and said, hey, we think this group is related to another group we've been investigating called the Finders. And so they get search warrants, and the U.S. Customs Service was actually involved because there was accusations that they might have been trafficking children across international boundaries or across state lines. So you had the Metro Police and you had U.S. Customs Service agents raiding this warehouse in DC and raiding their farm. And I found pictures from all those raids. And one of the agents, his name was Ramon Martinez, and he wrote a report afterwards. He said that they found naked pictures of children. They found detailed instructions on purchasing children from China. They found Chinese to English dictionaries. They said they had a room that was set up where it looked like they were taking photos that could be for photos of the kids or something else. But all this stuff was being reported by this Ramon Martinez, and I even found pictures where you see one of the officers walking out of the warehouse, and he's got like a clear trash bag, and you could just see that it's filled with stuff. That stuff is reportedly the pictures of children and all the evidence. Well, Martinez, he continues to follow the story after filing his report. In his own words, he says he showed back up to the DC Metro Police and was trying to get an update on what was going on, and that he was told by an officer at the time that the case was closed and it had now become a CIA official matter, and he was kind of just dismissed. And so that guy, he continues to talk, though. He continues to speak up even after the mainstream says the case is closed, it was mistaken identity or whatever. He is the one who actually got the congressman that I mentioned before to reinitiate an investigation in the early 90s. So he gets these congressmen. Again, the DOJ investigates themselves. Nothing comes of it. His entire career is basically ruined after that point. And they say that, he made things up. They change his position. They ship him off, to just crappy jobs until basically they ran him off. And I was able to find he actually had lawsuits with the federal government for whistleblower complaints, and they essentially just destroyed his entire reputation. So when I was investigating this in 2019, I actually found him, and he is living on the East Coast of the U.S. He's retired now. He teaches Tai Chi at a community center, and I had emailed him. I found him and emailed him and told him I was working on this documentary. Initially, he was willing to speak to me. And he sent me an email saying like, yeah, let's talk about this. But then something spooked him. And within a couple of days, he said, never mind. Like, I'm not going to, he got like mad at me. He's like, I'm not going to be used for somebody's this and that. I don't know what he was upset about necessarily. But he did say in the email that I have no doubt that no one will ever be held accountable for what I know happened. And so why should I talk to you? Basically, he said, I've talked to journalists over the, he claimed that 48 Hours, I don't even know if it's still around, but the news, the TV investigation program, that they interviewed him back in the late 80s, and then that they never aired it and never showed up on TV. So at this point, in the late 2010s, he's kind of just like, why should I even keep talking about it? This is just, all it's caused me is professional grief. Yeah. Well, while I was making the documentary, I was glad I made that contact, but it kind of felt like, you know what, I can't make this documentary without at least trying to get this guy to blow the whistle, because he could, be a major part of this. So I found out where he teaches Tai Chi, and I flew out there. And I flew out there just, knowing that he might just completely ignore me or be mad at me. And I was with a friend, and we were kind of like in full stakeout mode in the parking lot. I went inside to the Tai Chi place and said, "Oh, I'm looking to learn more about Tai Chi from my grandpa. Can you tell me about the classes?" And I was able to confirm he was a teacher there. So I just waited in the parking lot till I saw him coming in, and I just walked right up to him and said, "Mr. Martinez, I'm Derrick Broze. I'm the one you've been talking to." And right away, he's just like, "Fuck you, get the fuck away from me."
Wow.
And just, at that point, it becomes stalking. So I just kind of like, all right, I tried and backed off, but that guy is still alive. He's still out there, and he still stands by his story of what he saw and what was basically covered up. And there's, I encourage people to watch the documentary, because it is such a big topic, and there's so many loose threads that I haven't even fully explored. There was another officer with the, I think he was with the Tallahassee police. His name was Sergeant John Stitcher, and he had a heart attack at a very young age. I don't know if it was anything, mysterious. I haven't been able to find his family, but I do know for certain that he was one of the people, and I found articles showing this, where Sergeant John Stitcher, there's a picture of him, where he was saying that they had found certain things in Tallahassee that were then later being covered up by the FBI and by the Washington, D.C. police. And basically what they found is the initial doctor who examined the children in Tallahassee, and again, I have these medical records, said that one of the young girls, that her hymen had been broken, and that there was evidence of like vaginal penetration. One of the young boys, he had like a rectal prolapse, and he apparently couldn't keep his bowels in, like, things that little 7-8-year-old kids probably shouldn't be having, and were clear signs of sexual abuse. Then they got another doctor to examine them, and that doctor said he found nothing, and that was what the official report ended up being. But I was able to locate the original reports, the original doctors' examinations. And like I said, we've got FBI documents. We got the original report from Ramon Martinez. We got the Tallahassee Police Department documents. The Virginia police documents still have not been released to this day. They refused to release them from open records request when they raided the finders' farms. But I did find some reports where some witnesses said that they occasionally saw children being brought there in cages. These are things that are in the police documents that I don't even claim to fully know what the heck that means. Could somebody have imagined that? Sure, anything's possible. But when you really look at the data and what's in these original reports, and then what you look at what they reported publicly, there's definitely some big discrepancies.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I remember from it was like all the reports about sexual abuse that were exempted from it. One of the things I thought was really interesting was it's 1987. Like, at what point is email like widespread? Like, I was looking it up earlier. Email was apparently invented in like the 70s, but it was not widespread in 87.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. And these people were using basically email technology based on the documentary and the stuff that's in it. Everybody should go watch it. Somebody asked earlier, blah blah blah, asked what's the name of the documentary and where can you find it? Who will find what the finders hide? Full documentaries on YouTube. You go check it out. I put a link in our chat so you guys
Cool.
can find it there.
Yeah,
I'll
and
put it-
if
yeah.
people have trouble finding it on YouTube, you can always find it on my website, theconsciousresistance.com/thefinders. And I'll
There you
just
go.
add to what you were saying there. So they were using telex messages, and as you said, email had been invented by that point, but it was definitely not a normal thing that average people were using. And what they had actually was something more akin to like Ethernet and like wired internet, where they
Right,
were
that's- yeah.
sending messages. And even whenever they showed up at the warehouse, Martinez said that they found messages like that were communicating with the other members saying like, get out, like it's time to leave. And so what I believe and what the evidence I think shows is that what we have come to call the finders is really this vast network of many of them are former intelligence, and some of them go into, including people who are still alive right now, they go into the tech sector. They become journalists. They become tech journalists specifically. And like I said, they claim that, well, we're just collecting finder's fees because we're good at finding information. And Marion Petty, the game caller, he's the leader of this whole thing, he ran things in this really crazy way so that I think was done on purpose so that people didn't really know what was going on. Like you asked,
Right.
could Robert Terrell have been that close to him and maybe not know what was going on? I think it is possible. It seems unlikely if he was truly as close as he claimed to be, where he's sharing a toothbrush with him and he gave up his whole money. He gave away, basically this guy like abandoned his whole family
Yeah.
to become a part of this
Classic cult behavior. Yeah.
Exactly. And but what he would do is it would be like, okay, we're going to come together and say, game caller, will you give us a game? And then he'd hand you 2 tickets to San Francisco and say, come back with a gold coat. And, he'd turn to another person and say, bring me, the tail of a rabbit. Just all kinds of seemingly random stuff, or, sometimes related to money. Of course, as part of the cult behavior, they would all put their money into the information bank is what they called it. So everybody was already giving their money over to this guy. And then he sends them on all these weird tasks that don't appear to make any sense, and they claim that, well, this was just about kind of pushing past the struggles of everyday life and conforming, and just to get you to think outside the box. And I mean, I guess there's something there, but it really just seemed like a mishmash of bullshit. And when you really understand that the CIA absolutely was involved in a number of different cults, not just the Finders. The Finders, I think, is one of the most prominent ones that we know of, but for sure, there's some interesting stories when you get into Jim Jones and others that connect to intelligence services. And
Yeah.
as I said, I think it's without a doubt they were connected to the intelligence community. In fact, that report that I was talking about, the officer at the Tallahassee Police Department, he wrote that it is this officer's belief that this group will not disband as promised, but instead will break apart into different pieces and rebrand themselves and continue on as is claimed in their master plan. Now, I've never seen this master plan, but allegedly they found some master plan that kind of detailed these ideas. And so even the cops themselves were saying, like, we don't think this is over. This group's just going to claim that they're nothing, and they're going to splinter off into 1,000 pieces. So who knows what they're actually called, if they even had a name. But the man I've been interviewing, he still does live in Tallahassee. He still claims, that this is all big misunderstanding. I do encourage people to see the second interview that I released with him in 2021, or just to watch the chapter 15 of the Pyramid of Power, because I confront him even more directly. Because as I said, the first time I interviewed him, I didn't fully know the facts. So I was just kind of letting him share his story and pushing back a little bit where I could. But then once I did the documentary and I had all this documentation, and he's pissed off at me, he's like, oh, I thought we had good rapport, but you put out this documentary, claiming all these things. And he's like, you're just listening to conspiracy theorists on the internet. And I told him, I said, look, this is what the police report says. This is not conspiracy theorists on the internet. So you're telling me that I've got this all wrong and that there's nothing there. But that totally conflicts with what is in the documents from the police department, from this customs agent. And he really didn't have any good answer other than trying to kind of spin it like there's something wrong with people who want to believe in these conspiracy theories. They need to look into their own heart. He has this way of trying to like relate it to yoga. And, he's like, we were just trying to create an enlightened society. And it's something wrong with you if you think that this is going on. To me, it's kind of, he was trying to be manipulative and he wasn't very good at it. But ultimately, One other thing I'll share, as far as the name, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, I actually have a brief story about that. When I was starting to do my investigation leading up to the documentary, I had some of my listeners recommend that I put out everything that I was finding publicly, just, for my safety or just whatever reasons. And I had a few weird things happen as I was investigating the finders. Like I said, I flew across the country to go meet this guy. And if there's anybody who is assigned to kind of watch this case, they surely knew that I was digging up
Right.
documents and traveling and talking to people. And I started to dig into these different aspects, and I put out a 7-part just report that led to the documentary. And in that report, this is some really weird, trippy internet shit you guys might enjoy. So there was this thread, this weird rabbit hole that started with a YouTube video, and this YouTube video looked like what I assume some kind of MK Ultra mind programming is, because it was just like bright letters and colors and flashing, and it'd say, "Your trigger is blue. Your trigger is Little Mermaid," and just all this weird stuff, right? And then below it, there was these ciphers. They were clearly ciphers. And for one, the name of the channel that the person who uploaded the video was a former member of the Finders, because we also have a list of the roster as of at least the late 80s. And so that was like, to me, this is weird. So I follow the cipher, and the cipher leads to a Twitter account. And then you go to that Twitter account, and there's another weird video. And then basically you do this a couple of times. It goes like Twitter, it goes to some random blog. And then the final cipher was like, when you compute it, it was Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. So I decided to name my documentary that, just in case, like, whoever is doing that, I'm like, hey,
Whoever's
on
going
that
down the
trail.
rabbit hole will end up with you. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so, and I don't even think any of
Smart.
those videos are up anymore. I mean, you can see my original reports where I play them, and I was like, all right, here's what it says, close your eyes if you want or whatever, because they were super trippy and weird. And to me, it's such an obscure thing that it didn't feel like this was a troll, or because it's like nobody's ever heard of that. Nobody really knows who the Finders is. Nobody was promoting that video at the time as like, oh, look at this latest conspiracy. It would be one thing if it went super viral and say, okay, this is just, cicada or something, some kind of troll. I don't know. But it was so obscure, and it just happened. And I will say, and take this however you want, guys, but when I was investigating this, and I've had this happen throughout my work, it felt like I'm pretty good at investigating, digging up things, finding old articles, finding contacts, finding people, tracking them down. But it did feel like things were being placed in my lap, if you will. Like, it felt like and either it was just, I don't know, call it divine timing, call it whatever you want, but it felt like I could just tell, I was like, okay, I've got something here, and I'm not going to fucking let go until this documentary is done, because each piece was just leading me to a new piece of information. And like I said, the more documentation I pulled up, I'm just like, my mind is blown. How can nobody have heard about this? This is not like some of the quote unquote conspiracies out there where you've got like, yeah, okay, maybe there's something there, but there's not a lot of evidence. This is like heavily documented, and it's just one of those cases that the average person has just never heard about.
Could just be a simple fact. It's the 80. It's, it happened in the, what'd you say, in the 80s?
87.
Like 87. Yeah. And like back then, that chat was talking about it a moment ago about how like media in the world was just different at that time. And
Absolutely.
so when the media told you this is bullshit, they just kind of
believed it.
accepted that. Yeah.
And you didn't really have any other, like, for example, obviously with like P.
The
Diddy or
internet wasn't
Epstein.
here. Yeah.
Exactly. We couldn't just go like look at it. It took a while for people to be able to have access to that, because say pre-internet, and I'm thankful for all the internet resources we have, because pre-internet, if you were trying to investigate this, you would have to go to those police departments, file open records requests, go to the libraries to find old copies of articles. Like, one of my favorite resources, just for anybody who ever goes down rabbit holes, is newspapers.com. They don't have everything that ever existed everywhere, but absolutely you can find articles that are 100 years old, 150 years old in some cases. And many times, like, it's a complete digital copy of those articles. So I was able to find like the pictures I mentioned of the raids that hadn't been seen by the public probably since the day they were published in whatever newspaper they were published, and use those for my documentaries and kind of bring them back to life. We have such a vast amount of tools available to us, and I do think you're correct that when it happened, they would have had a much easier time to kind of snowball it and just claim anybody. Like, they basically killed that guy's career. They just said, oh, it's just this one crazy guy, and that's it. The story's over. And also because at that time in the late 80s, there was what the corporate media called the satanic panic, which I do think there were probably cases that were people making accusations that evidence wasn't too strong, but it's also just another straw man for people to say, oh, okay, that was just satanic panic. There's nothing to see there. And this is because so many different people, you have the McMartin preschool case, you've got the Franklin scandal, you've got the Finders. A lot of this stuff was coming out in the late 80s, and some of it was making mainstream, some of it was being quickly covered up. But for the most part, if you tell somebody, oh, it's just satanic panic, then they, oh yeah, okay, that just means it's crazy people, there's nothing to believe here. And that brings me to the final accusation. So the trafficking, the intelligence connections, I feel very strongly about this. In terms of them being involved in so-called satanic activity, which personally I think is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit. There's other cases that I have investigated where literally the abusers themselves are saying, we're abusing you in the name of Lucifer or whatever. And like, I don't have to believe that to see like, hey, they seem to believe it. But that's not the case in the Finders. In the Finders story, the two main things that people will talk about, it's sometimes nicknamed Goatgate because they found pictures of the kids wearing like white hoods and the adults were with them and they were, slaughtering goats. And so some people are like, oh, this is animal sacrifice. It could have been. What he claimed was that like many of us probably who want children or family members who can take care of their own lives, like, okay, well, if I'm going to raise animals, I want to slaughter them myself. It could just be as simple as that. We could debate whether or not that's appropriate for 6 and 7-year-old kids, but I didn't find that personally like strong enough to say like, yes, these are Satanists. And then the other thing was behind one of their houses, there was like a claim of a stone circle. Now, Robert Terrell told me that was because they had campfires out there. Again, like stone circle alone isn't enough to say like, yes, these people are satanic pedophiles. So I do have a theory that perhaps that kind of claim might have been thrown in there or just lumped in there in order to try to make this an easy thing for people to dismiss. Instead of looking at the hard evidence of the intelligence networks and the trafficking.
Look at the straw man.
Exactly. Oh, it's satanic. Oh, one of those QAnon type things. In fact, Vice wrote an article about this a few years ago. I did some video reports debunking their article, but they put out an article basically saying, here's the 1987 satanic panic story that inspired QAnon, and tried to say the Finders was like the progenitor of that. And of course they ignored all the actual evidence, all the police records. They just took the mainstream version of events, kind of laughed at it and said, oh, look, this is like QAnon. And so I do think that perhaps that claim could have got mixed in there because we haven't, on all my time looking in there, I haven't found anything deeper to corroborate claims of Satanism. I do think that those types of cults and groups do exist. I'm currently investigating another case in Utah. There's actually an ongoing sheriff's investigation where 2 people have been arrested and accused of ritualized child sexual abuse. So I think those things do happen. Again, whether or not I believe in Satan or not is kind of irrelevant, but these people seem to believe it. But when it comes to the Finders case, I haven't seen any of that to back that up.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story, and I really encourage everybody to watch it and everything else, because if all the rest of your stuff is as well documented and well put together as that, then it's great shit, man. Great shit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And real quickly, you kind of brought up the Franklin scandal there too, and I would love to dive more into the pyramid of power, just because that's kind of a little thing that I've learned about there. And with the Franklin scandal, you think that's one of those ones that was also swept under the rug rather quickly, because there seems to be a lot of very strange things with that, but not as much public information from what I've seen like there is for the Finders.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely not the expert to talk to about the Franklin scandal. I encourage people to look up the work of Nick Bryant, Bryant. He's on Twitter, I believe. And he's written a couple of books, and there's some other folks who have been deeper into that. But it is another example. And in that case, I think it's helpful because it shatters some of the myth that so many people like to believe that this is just the pedophile satanic Democrats, when in reality, this is an issue that pervades all political parties, all religions, all different walks of life. It's not just Catholics, and it's not just Democrats, and it's not just whatever. Like it really does go across all those boundaries. And the Franklin scandal is absolutely one of those cases. I mean, you have involvements of like a local credit union, you have local politicians, you have clear evidence of them trafficking children, and those were Republican officials. And like you said, it was very quickly covered up and dismissed. But again, in that case, like with the Finders, there's plenty of evidence and data and witnesses to corroborate what was going on, which was trafficking of kids through these basically through a big network of like foster care homes and banking. And it's a whole important story, interesting story that I encourage people to check out. And again, that could be by some people dismissed as satanic panic because it happened around this time. I don't know why it was. I mean, I think there probably was some element. I think the better term is moral panic, because I'm sure you guys have seen the videos from back in the day where like Dee Snider and all these old like heavy metal musicians from the 80s had to go fight Al Gore's wife at Congress because they were trying to put parental advisory stickers on records and CDs and shit. That was like the beginning of these people like, oh my God, will somebody think of the children? And so there was definitely some of that going on where probably like people were seeing, you know, stranger danger, predators everywhere, but then there were also real cases of it. So I think there might have been some overlap where people are hearing whispers about like, oh, something about kids being trafficked here and finders something or other. And that got mixed in with like some Christian conservative, like be afraid of heavy metal and this and that. And they're playing Magic the Gathering. And
it's a convenient excuse, right? If you have a target, if you have a political or any kind of group that you want to target, and there happens to be this other obviously bad group that happens to overlap in some areas, like say homeschooling or unschooling, then you can use that as a weapon to go after your enemies. So it makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mitch, I encourage you to check out the Pyramid of Power series, brother. I think you would enjoy it. I might I'll elaborate a little bit. My whole goal with that was, you know, you guys know there's so many good books, there's so many good documentaries out there, but a lot of people, most people aren't going to read them. They're not going to watch a 3-hour documentary. They're not going to read a 500-page book. But my goal with the Pyramid of Power was to try to create episodes that would basically be for, you know, bingeable for the Netflix generation, so that they're 30 minutes or less. And I've succeeded,
very smart,
except for maybe 2 episodes because just, you know, some of them are a little deeper. But for the most part, these are 30 minutes and under. And what I do is I'm providing my own original research, but also I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. So I'll reference books that have already covered whatever the topic is at hand, or previous documentaries, and kind of source that. And so every episode, like the first one is big education, then we go media. And it's the idea is that we start out kind of at the quote unquote bottom of the pyramid, pretty mainstream. And as we progressively get deeper, it gets more conspiratorial, but again, all factual, all like everything I have is in the transcripts and is documented, backed up. And so it's 30 minutes or less. It goes deep into these topics. And then every episode ends with solutions like, hey, if you want to get out of the big education system, learn about homeschooling, unschooling, etc. And then every episode ends with, to learn more, read these books, watch these documentaries. And so my goal with it was that it would just be kind of like not only a tool for those of us who are already thinking about these things to share with family and friends who aren't going to watch a long video, but okay, can you sit them down for 30 minutes and say, just sit down and watch this and see what you think, right? And I've had people tell me they've used it for homeschooling their children, having them watch it and do reports on it, which is pretty amazing to hear that. And so every episode, as I said, aims to be 30 minutes. Maybe 2 or 3 of them went into 40 minutes. But we're working on the final one right now, which is we've now made our way up to religion and secret societies. And so I just interviewed David Icke a couple weeks ago for that one. I'm going to have some other kind of old school researchers in that one. And then the final episode will be out early next year. And that one is just pretty much going to be a number of people from Mark Passio to Larkin Rose to David Icke and just different people I've interviewed answering that question, who or what do you think is at the top of the pyramid? And then I'll provide kind of my own final conclusions. And then my goal is once this is done, like this is honestly, it's the biggest project I've ever taken on. I've been working on it for 3 years. And so my goal is to get it on USB thumb drives for people who have DVD players still, put it on a DVD and turn it into a kind of a companion book as well, with all my scripts turned into chapters for people to read.
Nice.
And you know, like you said about the evergreen comment, I mean, this is definitely one of my previous editors told me like, hey, focus on content that is going to be evergreen, not just the trending topic of the week, because nobody's going back in 5 years to see what we were talking about randomly about on October 22nd, 2024, unless it has some staying power, you know, but you generally don't care about whatever the heck was happening that random week. But things like these bigger topics, the information is going to be relevant no matter who's president, no matter what year it is, no matter how far along we've come away from that. And so that's kind of my goal, is that this research can really stand the test of time and continue to be used as a tool to get people to question, you know, the world around them.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. I want to know, you said at the beginning when you were talking about it, Rob and Josh and Mitch, if you guys want to talk, just jump in, man. You got to skip ahead of me. The more of these that I just,
how many drinks are you in?
This is like number 3 or 4.
Okay, good.
I don't count. I just keep refilling it every time it gets low. So
I just want to know, and if I have to wait for the episode to come out, so be it. Did David Icke say reptilians were at the top?
Okay, so I won't give away his answer, but we did talk about the reptilians.
Okay.
I think, we did get into that. I mean, that's obviously one of the reasons I wanted to interview him, because really with the final episode, I'm interviewing people who say it's the Jews, it's the Jesuits, it's the reptilians.
Did Alex Jones decline? Because you didn't mention him.
I haven't reached out to Alex. I kind of
Come
honestly
on!
think there are better people to talk to about those
Better
things.
people. How can you
Oh.
have anyone better? You're gonna hurt.
I mean,
me.
David Ike is pretty much the British
Yeah.
Alex
Yeah,
Jones. to
He
be honest.
is, but come on.
David
And he's-
Ike's a whole
and
other
honestly,
level, man.
honestly, this is the thing. The reason and I encourage you guys to go, because besides
Yeah.
interviewing him for the documentary, I did an 1.5-hour interview with him as well. That's on my website that I think you guys might enjoy. I appreciate Ike. Just like with anyone, I don't agree with him on every single topic, but I give him credit where credit's due that he is way more consistent than Alex Jones and other people in terms of not falling for the latest
Sure.
hero and the latest narrative. Like, I think he is consistently calling out shit, and that pisses people off that he keeps calling out. Now, of course, getting into people like, oh, well, he said he was Jesus, or he claimed reptilians and this and that. Like you were saying earlier, talking about various rabbit holes. I go down any rabbit hole. I'm open to it. I'll give it a moment, and say, okay, yeah, there's nothing there for me.
Careful, Derek. Careful, Derek. Your libertarian autism is showing.
Well, this has actually been one of my huge problems with the libertarian movement over the years, is that the libertarians, as far as the more mainstream part of the movement, I'd say especially the party, are those who are concerned with mainstream acceptance. They have turned their back or refused to investigate 9/11, talk about these conspiracies. But people like Ron Paul and others have, the Fed was a conspiracy at one point, and it still is to a lot of people. They still look at that like it's conspiracy in the mainstream. And like I mentioned, I was at City Council today. I was going there to speak about water fluoridation here in the city of Houston. That's still considered a conspiracy by some people. And so I think that there are, people, libertarians and in general, people all over the board need to be open to willing to question things, even if it's not politically safe or, if it's not going to gain you any friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a third party for a reason. We should be
Yeah.
interjecting those point of views into the public, into the arena.
Well, the thing that's frustrating about it is that people who are uneducated, like I was at City Council, right? There's 16 council members. There's the mayor. I give them this big spiel. I print out paperwork about this federal court ruling. I was in this court reporting. I was the only journalist there, all across the entire United States, the only journalist there in this federal court. And a lawsuit against the EPA. The judge recently just ruled 2 weeks ago that fluoride is causing lower IQ in children. This is not my words. This is now in a federal court ruling. We've got a U.S. government study. None of these freaking people in City Council have any idea about this. None of them are educated on it. I'm coming there. I'm giving them information. I'm emailing it. And they just sit there in silent and treat me like just a crazy person. And that's how most people see it. They're just not informed.
After you're done, they're like, "So you're gay or something? What's the
Yeah.
What are you trying to tell us?"
That was pretty much what the looks were.
Yeah. So this you have a viewer on Rumble who really wants you to talk about the fluoride trial. So this is a good segue into that.
Oh, cool,
wait.
cool.
I do want to ask before
Yeah.
we get to that, because I was typing up some questions here. Whenever I send a FOIA request out, sometimes we'll get a denial, but they will give us a reasoning. Did they give you a reasoning for any of the denial for the 1987 for that?
The finders?
Yeah, for the
I can't remember
finders.
off the top of my head, because I wasn't the one who filed the Virginia one. That's another journalist that I was working with. And it's, if you guys are familiar with the website, I think it's Muckrack, which is like just, it was basically a website to help people file FOIA requests. You can still find that. I mean, it's public out there. I don't think the Tallahassee police, because sometimes, typically, like you said, they will give a reason, and sometimes that can just be a bullshit reason, like national security, or I don't know, they come up with whatever. But they didn't provide one for the farm. And I think there's probably some details over there, because again, this is like a remote farm that the finders owned, that Marion Petty owned based off all the money that the members had given to him. And that at least one neighbor, and this is in the police reports from another area, I think from the FBI, where they said that neighbors had reported hearing children screaming and seeing children transported in cages, which to me, it's like, if you see kids in cages, I don't know why the FBI needs to show up for you to say something about it or do something about it. But so we still don't have that, but it's been a couple of years. So maybe it's time to try to file again and see if they'll let them out.
Yeah.
All right. And why do you think that the FBI, CIA, and big alphabet organizations like intelligence agencies like this, why do you think they're covering child trafficking up, like to the extent that like that we're aware of, that you're aware of? Why do you think that they're covering it up?
I mean, because pedophiles run the world. I mean, and I say that without even any joking sense. I encourage you to go check out the latest episode, The Pyramid of Power, the pedo class, and it goes into the finders, it goes into the Utah thing talks about just the history of this. It's, Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg, and the work I've done on Epstein, as well as my colleague Whitney Webb, shows the connections between intelligence agencies and mafia and organized crime. And this goes back generations, pretty much really picking up post World War II. I can't claim why they're doing it, but I believe that's why they're covering it up, is because it's just so all pervasive at different levels of government. Like I said, crossing all political parties, religions, sexual orientations, whatever, people across the board, from, just the creepy neighbor who might touch some little girl on his street to the more organized level of what we're talking about, where there's intelligence agencies involved, trafficking kids. And, there's other, of course, conspiracy theories people add on top of that. Well, this is for the organ harvesting. This is for adrenochrome. I have no idea. I can't prove any of those things. I'm open to it, but I can't prove it. But I can definitely say that these things do happen, and that there has been absolute covering up by the U.S. intelligence agencies when it comes to trafficking of children.
Yeah. Thanks for being concise on that. I had one more thing. I think that the officer who was teaching the Tai Chi is mad at you because you do look like you would love to do Tai Chi.
He thought I wanted to come to class, man.
He's like, you're an easy mark, bro. Why you
got so excited?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way I'll get him to talk, is I have to show up and take one of his classes.
Yeah, you gotta, the what is it? The pupil has to beat the master, and then he'll tell you his secrets.
Then he tells me his secrets. That's the big trick.
Yeah.
Wax off. All right, we're good.
I do. Okay, I'm conflicted here, and you guys can kind of help me decide where to go from this, because I want to know who's at the top of the pyramid of power. I want to know that.
Have to watch.
But I also like the fluoride discussion a lot, so I don't know where to go. Are they connected?
Let's appease the Rumble viewers.
Who's at the top of the pyramid? I'll tell you.
No,
God
damn it.
Yeah, you gotta watch, man. That's
gotta watch.
That was my question for you.
I honestly think
who
my
do you
answer
think's
is
running
gonna-
the world?
I think my answer is going to disappoint a lot of people when it's done.
Is it
But
the aliens?
I will tell you that I'm like knee deep in the research for these are my final 2 chapters of it, and I'm so freaking I'm kind of like stuck on procrastinating and being intimidated by it, because obviously I created this project, but now I'm like, oh my god, I'm about to end it. I got to end this right. So I'm reading this book. I bought this book recently. This is from 1850, and the full title is "The Engineer Corps of Hell," or let me give you the guys the full title so you can understand what I'm working with. The Engineer Corps of Hell, or Rome's Sappers and Miners, containing the tactics of the militia of the Pope, or the secret manual of the Jesuits, and other matters intensely interesting, especially to the lovers of civil and religious liberty, wherever dispersed throughout the globe. It was written by a man named Edward Sherman. And so, like, I'm going back, guys. I'm like knee deep in this research, trying to look like, okay, where do these conspiracies actually come from? How much of them are actually factual, and how much is just bullshit, And some of it, a lot of it is bullshit. But there are, in many of these cases, like, you pull a certain thread, and it's like, okay, there is something here. There is something, worth talking about. So, who knows? I don't even fully know my main conclusion, but we'll see if I end up. Maybe I'm gonna end up agreeing with Ike, and it's the reptilians.
When is the?
telling you, man, it's the reptilians.
How autistic is that author? Holy fuck! Yeah, exactly.
The title.
Yeah.
So specific, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a thesis.
You said this is for the Netflix generation, those who binge, guilty. When is the final episode come out? Because I don't watch any series until it's over, and then I go back and watch the whole thing.
Perfect.
Yeah. So when is the end?
So the chapter 16, which is Religion and Secret Societies, will come out. It's looking like December of this year, and then at the latest, I'm trying to have February be the final episode, because I'm still going around and interviewing people for the final episode. So like I said, I'm going to be interviewing Larkin Rose in a couple weeks for the final episode. I've just interviewed Ike, and I've got a few more to pull in, and I'm doing my research, but the goal is for the whole thing to be completed by February 2025, and that will have taken me the better part of 5 years to put this together, because it was originally this was a 2-hour presentation I gave. I did a speaking tour back in 2018. I did 50 cities around the US, and people were kind enough to sit there for 2.5 hours while I did a presentation called The Pyramid of Power. And then by the end of that tour, I realized maybe this isn't the best format for all this information. Maybe I need to make it a little more palatable, and it became this documentary series.
Joey, fuck off. I'm not what. I have to have permission from the guy who put it together before we do a 16-hour watch-along stream. Okay.
Yeah, we get the green screen. Get the green screen in the background, and a couch and some popcorn.
Oh god.
Stream it.
Hey, he said stream it. I got permission. It's over. You should.
And
right
also,
now.
it's been
Yeah.
translated to Italian and to Danish and to Spanish so far. So it's
Good
pretty cool. It's
fucking God.
definitely
Oh,
getting
yeah.
out there.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Well, so you're not going to answer the question who you think is running the world.
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Not yet.
No, we
Not
gotta
yet.
wait.
We'll get
We gotta
there.
wait
All right.
to the fun episode.
So if it comes out in February, let's plan again for March. But we'll put that discussion on hold. Is the fluoride making the frogs gay?
It is.
Oh, that's the
definitely
atrazine. That's the atrazine.
That's the atrazine. See, look, this is my problem with Alex Jones. Is like he takes something that is factual atrazine, and it's not making them gay. It's
How is that a
making them
problem, though?
hermaphrodites. That
You're gonna
so
make
then
me-
People,
you're gonna make me
people
get on
hear
the
me talk
defense.
about fluoride, and then
my-
they're like, "Oh, this is just one of those Alex Jones guys, right?"
No.
And it makes it easy to dismiss those of us who are talking about those topics.
You're
but
looking at
doing
it wrong.
from a fucking rational perspective and not screaming and jumping up and down. And
You're looking
and
at
trust
it
me,
wrong.
Alex Jones woke me up. Like I have respect for him. He woke me up in the beginning, but yeah.
So
that's a
what
whole
you're
nother-
saying is that the method works, because I think
No.
you're looking at this wrong. Because you're
No,
saying
he was less crazy back in 2009. He wasn't as
You
crazy
are
as he is
correct.
now.
You
Yeah,
are
he
correct.
He was way
Tim-
less.
He was
Yeah.
a totally different person. He's
Tim,
the one who taught
you
me that the
obviously
left-right
weren't-
paradigm was bullshit.
Yes,
And then
you
now
are-
he promotes it.
yeah.
Tim-
You obviously weren't warned about my love for Alex Jones.
I was
That's
not.
it. Okay.
No, I warned him that you're the most anarchist, non-anarchist I've ever known.
Okay,
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
who you were talking about? This is the one you
Yeah,
warned me
this
about?
fucking
Yeah,
asshole.
yeah.
This fucking
Yeah.
guy.
This dickhead.
So
We'll get him someday. Don't worry.
tell
We
me
can
if
talk
I'm
about
wrong.
that.
Here. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Tim. So the atrazine to me is more of a physiological issue, whereas the fluoride is more of a mental and
Right.
and spiritual issue due to like the calcification of the pineal gland. Like that, can you go into some of that? Like, because I see
What
you
was
know,
the
you're
trial?
conscious-
What was the trial?
Yeah,
That's
tell-
what I want to know.
I'll start
Yeah.
with the lawsuit and then I'll get to where you're going. Because, yeah, you're right. So the lawsuit was filed in 2016 by a group called the Fluoride Action Network, as well as Food and Water Watch, another group called Moms Against Fluoridation. And this was after a law was passed in the U.S. called the Toxic Substance Control Act, which basically allowed citizens to come together and petition the EPA if you have evidence that some compound or chemical is toxic. And so, you know, there's been for decades, pretty much since the beginning of water fluoridation in the 1940s, people have been warning about the health impacts of it. And so the Fluoride Action Network and these other groups, they got together their best studies that they were specifically showing that fluoride is a neurotoxin, that it affects the development of all of us, but particularly of young children and babies when they're still in the womb. And so they presented this evidence to the EPA with a petition. The EPA denied the petition, and then they sued the EPA in 2017. So I interviewed the father of the founder of the organization. His name's Paul Connett, who's been fighting fluoride for like 30 years. And his son, Michael Connett, is a brilliant lawyer who is the one who took on the case. And so in 2017, they filed this lawsuit. By 2020, in the middle of COVID times, they have the first phase of the trial. It was all via Zoom. So I was in the Zoom courtroom and I was doing live tweeting and writing articles about it. And then the trial got put on hold because the judge said, hey, there's some new studies that are going to be coming out. Let's just wait till those come out before I make my final conclusions. Well, that took 4 freaking years. So the trial didn't resume till January 2024 of this year. And that was in person in San Francisco. So I went to San Francisco. I was in court for 2 weeks, every single day, live tweeting. I interviewed Dr. Howard Hu, Dr. Bruce Lamphere, Dr. Philippe Grandjean. These are the leading experts who helped develop the standards for mercury toxicity, for lead toxicity, and who were trying to raise the alarm bell about fluoride. And so basically
I'm sorry,
the-
Tim's so drunk right now. He's showing us his fluoride-free toothpaste.
hey, there you go. He's
I'm a believer.
He's all in it. So they've been fighting this court case for a long time, and you know I'll save you guys the details. I'll just share a couple of important facts. But if people want to go back, you can find all my reporting on this at theconsciousresistance.com. We have a whole section dedicated to my work on water fluoridation, including the interviews with Michael Connett, the lead attorney, and the expert witnesses I mentioned. The major thing I think that's important to know is that between 2020 and 2024, when the first phase of the trial happened, Dr. Philippe Grandjean, who is the leading expert on mercury toxicity, he's from Denmark. He came to the U.S. and he spoke in the Zoom trial. And he said at that trial, which there has been literally no mainstream reporting on this up until the recent conclusion. You got some, brief mainstream reports. They've completely ignored it while it was going on. But Philippe Grandjean said that he used to work for the World Health Organization, and that in his words, the fluoride lobby had taken over the WHO and was not allowing any discussion on the harms of fluoride. So that was one thing that if we lived in a different world might have been headline news. But the other big thing was that between 2020 and 2024, one of the studies that the judge was waiting for is from the U.S. National Toxicology Program. They were putting together a systematic review, what's sometimes called a monograph, and this is basically they gather all the studies that exist, like all over the world, English, non-English studies, and they categorize them based on high quality to low quality, and they take all the high quality studies and they review all of them and they come to conclusions. Well, in 2022, through the lawsuit, Michael Connett and the Fluoride Action Network were able to get emails that specifically showed that as of May 2022, the scientists at the NTP were ready to release their study, and their draft version said that fluoride was lowering IQ in children. But because of the lawsuit, we got emails showing that members of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and you guys may have heard of a person named Rachel Levine, formerly known as Richard Levine, over at the Secretary of Health, something like that. This is transgender person.
Yep. Okay.
They were listed specifically in the emails as having blocked the release of this study. We had and those emails only came out because of this lawsuit. And yeah, again, like if we were in a different world, to me, the fluoride emails would be
dick.
would be front page news, because this is like clear again, just like with the finders thing, clear evidence of government corruption going on here in emails, them mentioning, Secretary Levine has put this on hold until further notice. We also had, which is not something the public usually sees, we had emails showing the peer review process where you could see these anonymous peer reviewers trying to get the scientists at the NTP to kind of water down their conclusions and add in phrases that would basically just make it seem less impactful. And you see the scientists literally fighting for their work and saying like, no, we believe that the conclusions are solid and we've already reviewed the comments. And so behind the scenes, the public has no idea this is going on, but behind the scenes, these scientists are fighting, for the quote unquote science. They're fighting for the real data. We've been told these kind of ideas, questioning fluoride, questioning COVID, is anti-science. But behind the scenes, these scientists who work for the U.S. government have been fighting for their conclusions to come out. So in 2024, when we finally went back to court, some of that information was allowed into court, but the judge also was like, well, I don't want to allow discussions on conspiracies or corruption. So the data was allowed in, but no discussion on, well, why are these people trying to block these studies? And, is there ever going to be any accountability? There will never be any accountability. Nobody's going to be held accountable for blocking the release of this study for at least 2 years. But in January and February, when we came back to trial, the judge heard from witnesses from the EPA, witnesses from the Fluoride Action Network. And, I don't have a scientific background, but I'm very well versed in fluoride and this topic because I've spent so much time researching it. But the judge, of course, he's not a scientist. He comes from a legal background, obviously. He's having to learn margin of exposure, point of departure, and, parts per million, and all these different terminology. And he was doing a great job, honestly, like pausing them every now and then, say, hold on, explain that to me again. How does this work? And what does this mean? And I do truly think, as far as judges go, and, we all know the justice system is corrupted, but this judge seemed to be genuinely trying to do his job. So the trial wrapped up in February, and it was a long wait up until just a couple of weeks ago in September when he finally issued his ruling. And his ruling says specifically, I have it right here in front of me because I'm that much of a nerd about this stuff. He says, the court finds that the fluoridation of water at 0.7 milligrams per liter, the level presently considered optimal in the U.S., poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. Indeed, the EPA's own expert agrees that fluoride is hazardous at some level of exposure, and ample evidence establishes that a mother's exposure to fluoride during pregnancy is associated with IQ decrements in her offspring. So he basically ruled that the EPA now has to do something. We don't know what. He said it triggers a regulatory response. Obviously, the most common sense thing is for them just to get rid of it and stop adding it to the water, because it's just recommendations from the CDC. There's nothing that actually mandates that it must take place. But for those who don't know the whole history of what we're talking about, water fluoridation chemicals mostly hydrofluorosilicic acid, are byproducts of phosphate mining, of aluminum mining. And there's this company called Mosaic that's based in Florida that makes millions and millions of dollars. Instead of having to come up with some way to dispose of this toxic waste, instead they sell it to cities like Houston, where I'm from, and they sell it to them for $1 million a year, and then they add that to the water, and people drink it. And it's not this study or this lawsuit was focused on the neurodevelopmental issues, so particularly IQ. But there are so many other studies looking at bone problems, looking at kidney issues, liver issues. The pineal gland is definitely calcified from it. We actually have studies going back to 1930 where they first knew about skeletal fluorosis because of people who were working in mines where fluoride was naturally being released and they were being exposed to it, and their bones were becoming like hardened, but at the same time very brittle. And also, I mean, none of this information is new. I think that's what's the most crazy thing about it, is that they've just had this massive propaganda campaign. I've never actually seen it, but the movie Dr. Strangelove, I think, was a big part of that in the past, where it's like, oh, this is some big communist conspiracy and only silly people bring up these things like this. We all know that fluoride's safe. In fact, the CDC still says that of their top 10 public health achievements of the 20th century, they include vaccines and fluoride and things like that on there. And that's still there. And even after this ruling came down from the judge, which I just read, there was another report from the National Toxicology Program that I was just mentioning. They finally did release the report despite all that attempts at covering them up. And the U.S. National Toxicology said they found moderate confidence that fluoride exposure is consistently associated with lower IQ in children. So, I mean, this information's out there. Thankfully, there's a few cities who have already kind of paused their water fluoridation programs, mainly small towns who are saying like, okay, we're going to wait and see what the EPA does. So that's why I was going to city council today and last week. Not that I really expect them to do anything, but just to sort of, hey, you can't act like you're ignorant. Here's the studies. I've sent them the court rulings. I've sent them the documents, and nothing, of course, has happened. They just sort of look at me and say, "Ding, next speaker." Yeah. But that's just part of what I do for this particular work, and to me, I guess the overall frustrating aspect of this whole thing has been that, again, I can go to a city council where these people are being paid, reasonable amount of money to run the city, and they're completely uninformed on any number of topics, but especially this topic. And they look at me as, well, you're not a scientist, you're not a dentist, so why should I bother looking at any of the things you're sharing with me, when I'm way more informed than I think the average person is about this. And I think that's really to our detriment, because so many people, as the judge said, I mean, it's not just drinking fluoride. For those who don't understand this, like, you're showering in fluoride. If you're using the tap water for your noodles, for your pasta, it's actually increasing the fluoride concentration, because as the water evaporates, the fluoride is a salt, so it will stay there and it increases into your food. If you're making your coffee in it, most processed foods that have water in them, they're going to be using fluoridated water. It goes way beyond the level of what's in the water. And that was a major sticking point at the trial. It's not just that somebody's drinking 1 cup of water a day. They're also eating processed food. They're also showering. So you're getting kind of multiple sources of this exposure. And then at the same time, when it comes to pregnant moms, which was the major focus, when a mom reaches her 3rd trimester, she's drinking way more water than normal. So she's consuming it. People who are have kidney issues or diabetes doing dialysis, they're usually encouraged to drink more water to help them. Well, if they're drinking fluoridated water, they're just getting more of these same impacts. Mm-hmm. So it's and obviously, like, if you have money and time and a vehicle, then you can go out and you can either install reverse osmosis or distillers in your home and get it out of your whole house, or you can go like I do and buy these 5-gallon reusable bottles and go to the local filtration station and have that at home. But if you are somebody who doesn't have a disposable income, doesn't have a vehicle, then you're going to be probably just drinking fluoridated water, and you probably also don't even know this information's out there because the public's not telling you. So it's definitely a huge issue, and it's one that was the first thing, actually, talking about Alex Jones. It was an Alex Jones flyer from back in the day. You guys may remember it. It said, "There's poison in the tap water."
Yes,
that was
I had the bumper sticker. Yes.
So that was one of my first forms of activism back in the day. In 2011, I started going around my neighbor and putting up those posters around my neighborhood on the light poles. And
it was the water droplet with the skull in the middle.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. So, I mean, that's why to me, it's like that was one of the first things that I kind of woke up to. And now to sort of 14 years later, be one of the only journalists in the courtroom actually reporting on this, it feels good to kind of come full circle. I never thought we would have this court ruling, but of course the EPA is basically going to delay as long as they can. They're probably going to appeal it to drag this out for even more years. It's already been almost 8 years since the thing began. And in that time, people are going to continue to be exposed to this, and they're going to keep promoting it like it's the best thing ever.
So they appealed it. It's going to be Fluoride Action Network versus the EPA. Is that what it is?
They haven't appealed it yet. So like the ruling was just when was the ruling? It was September 24th. So it's literally been just less than a month.
Very new.
So,
Yeah.
but the official title, just in case you are interested, it's Food and Water Watch Inc. et al. The plaintiffs versus U.S. EPA. And that's in the federal court in San Francisco with Judge Chen. But we're expecting that they probably will appeal it, but they haven't done anything yet. So, and Michael Connett, the lead attorney, told me even if they don't appeal it and they say, okay, we're going to initiate the rulemaking process, the TSCA law doesn't say like you must do something within 6 months or a year. So they can make this rulemaking process last year's. They can just say, well, we're in a committee and we're thinking about what to do, and then we're going to pass it to the next subcommittee. And it's kind of an uncharted territory. Nobody's beaten the EPA through this law. They're the first people to successfully use TSCA to get to a federal court and then to actually win. So it's unprecedented.
It's awesome.
It's great. Yeah, it is. It is awesome.
Like you said, like so many years of this being public information to finally get some kind of headway. Hopefully, it turns into something real. Like maybe they can actually stop.
I mean,
fluoridation.
I would love to take that case and implement it on this side, maybe in the northern district.
This side of the Chattahoochee.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, dude, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I've basically been going to city council. I printed out, this is the court ruling. I just took some quotes from it. I printed out like the NTP report and a couple quotes from that. And then I printed out an article showing that Abilene City Council temporarily suspends water fluoridation. Because the hope is, even if the EPA still somehow weasels their way out of this, now those of us who give a shit, we have a little bit of ammo to say, hey, it's not just me, it's an Alex Jones. This is a federal court. This is a U.S. government report that concludes these things. So I know that sometimes in our online communities, people get blackpilled and they're like, yeah, of course, we all know fluoride's poison. But the average person still doesn't fucking know that. And you can use this kind of information to show them it's not just me and my autistic weirdo friends. Look, here's a federal court that found the same thing.
It's good. My mom would appreciate. Yes.
No, that's a huge win. And like even in our foods, the byproducts that get sold to these companies for the millions of dollars and they just put in our foods, it definitely needs to be looked at. The government, we're all libertarians here, so we're like, screw the government. Government is ineffective at doing, but it is actually ineffective because what it should do, if anything, is keep the public safe, and it's poisoning Americans.
That's what I was going to say. It's not ineffective. It's deadly.
It's effective. It's effective in poisoning.
It's effectively deadly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only to me is it like not doing the government not doing what it should do, but in bad faith allowing like the FDA, the EPA, and all these agencies allowing us to be poisoned.
Like honestly, growing up like ignorant to all this shit, like I'm so happy I had well water, I had a septic system. I was kind of almost off the grid completely growing up with the kids. So it's like, cool, I avoided fluoride. We didn't have fucking community water. Fuck y'all.
So how do you explain the dumbassery?
Yeah.
The dumbassery?
Well, okay. I do have a question because
that's not fluoride.
This is something
that's just
genetic.
ADHD and boredom.
Yeah. So I was scrolling through your Twitter, your X, and I saw there was a post on RFK. You were kind of saying, if you think that RFK joining the Republicans is positive, think again. I'm paraphrasing, but what do you think about RFK and his stances on all of this?
He wants to make America healthy again. Aren't you
talking about the Maha thing? I mean,
Maha.
I don't buy any of that bullshit. I mean, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, him supporting going with Trump was a selling out of whatever he claimed to be about. I was never going to support him in the first place. I actually confronted him last year on his position on Zionism and things like that. And I was supposed to interview him. It never happened. So I was never a supporter of his in the first place. But to me, the rhetoric he was claiming of beating the two-party system, which obviously I appreciate, whether I was going to support him or not, and then going to support Trump in my eyes is kind of a capitulation and selling out of what he was originally about. And I also think it's more just hopium, believing in promises from proven liars of like, oh, RFK is somehow going to get into some position where he can actually do something. It sounds great right now while they're campaigning, of course. And of course, if it did or does happen, then, you know, cool. If they're going to get rid of the fluoride, because RFK has occasionally tweeted about the lawsuit and things like that. But I don't see any. I don't think it's going to lead to any major changes in the way. I mean, freaking Donald Trump's at McDonald's serving people. Like, obviously, Maha's not really getting too far in his brain. I think it's just he knows that he can pull some of those RFK supporters who were backing him into his nexus if he goes that route. And I wanted to say one other thing just on the whole libertarian aspect of it. Mitch mentioned earlier that I ran for mayor of Houston. I ran in 2019 and 2023, not because I believe in the political system, but really to talk about these issues, because Derrick Broze, the local conspiracy theorist, doesn't get invited the same places that Derrick Broze, candidate for mayor, does. And so I was getting access to radio, TV, Republican groups, Democrat groups, old folks' homes, high schools, and it was just giving me a platform to speak in my community about fluoride, about surveillance, about all these issues. And what we were saying is like, hey, let's end the water fluoridation program. It's costing the city $1 million. And then let's just give the people back. Now, if you divide that by the amount of Houstonians, it might be like $1 or $2 each. But to me, that's a better libertarian solution than just continuing to poison the people, even if it amounts to pennies per person. The point is really that you end the poisoning of the whole thing. So I try to fight for local solutions. I don't put my faith in RFK or Trump or any of these people that they're going to really address these issues. From what I saw the first 2 times in Trump's run is he'll say just enough things to kind of pull in, he'll mention the Fed and try to get the Fed libertarians, or he'll mention, I love the WikiLeaks and these sort of things, just to kind of like throw a bone to each of these different crowds and then not deliver on any of the fronts.
Do you think he's going to free Ross?
Man, you know, I was in the courtroom when Ross got sentenced. I was there reporting on it, and you can go back and if you look up some of the old articles, you'll see they say something like there was a dreadlocked man in there that yelled "Free Ross." That was me. Whenever they hit the sentence. So of course, and I've been close with Lynn and Ross's family, and you know he's written me. I want Ross to be freed more than anything, and if it has to come through Trump, then you know, I will be grateful that it happened, right? But I do fear that people who want that, including Ross's family, you know, I was at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, and there's people with shirts like, you know, "Free Ross, vote Trump," and that just makes me throw up on my mouth a little bit. I also think it will be really fucked up if Trump is, like he has, like I was just mentioning, making false promises. And I mean, these are real people. Ross's family is like literally like holding on to the last bit of hope that they have because the Supreme Court rejected the case. Yeah, it's a presidential pardon, or that's it. Like that's all that's going to do it. So obviously it doesn't seem like Biden's going to be the one to do it, Kamala, etc. So I get the idea. I want to see them. I want to see him freed. I want to have, you know, meet him in the real world, and we would all love that, and I would totally support that. Of course, I would worry if Trump did that one little good thing, at what cost it will come with all the other shit he might do. But of course, I want to see Ross freed. I'm just really worried that fucking person is toying with his family's emotions, and that I think will be one of the worst parts to see if he doesn't deliver.
Yeah, to quote toothless paste. Toothless paste. Trump pardoned Assange. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
I got to get going though, guys. I appreciate the time.
Derrick,
we need to have you back because
I'm down to come back, man.
100%.
I'm down to shoot the shit, come back on. Let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just say, you go ahead. Let me know. Mitch has my info. You guys can get in touch with me at any point. I'm down to come back on and chat a little bit more and get deeper into some of these topics, and maybe post-election we'll see how things are looking.
That's what I wanted to end it with. Oh, I have 2 questions to end it with. Actually, I was just reminded myself. First question: who are you voting for?
What a dick.
I'm voting for Jill Stein.
Yeah,
man.
There we go.
No, I don't vote. I vote every day with my actions. I don't vote for lying politicians.
There we go. Good. Salute you, sir. And then Joey brought up a good question. We have to test your libertarian autism for a moment. It's the most important question. You will be judged very heavily. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Damn, y'all fucked me up with that one.
Damn.
Everybody's like, what? Where did this come from?
Taking us back. Damn.
Yeah, man. Hey, Joey did it. Joey did it.
Who would ever think of something like that?
I'm down for a hot dog to be a sandwich. I think it qualifies.
Seriously?
It's got bread on it. It's got bread on it.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We're
Derek,
getting
you're welcome
answers.
on this show any fucking
Freaking
time, any
postmodernist.
day.
Yeah.
You guys have a good night, man. I'll talk to you.
The sideways.
Nice talking to you, man. You have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Appreciate you coming
guys.
out.
Yeah.
Freaking postmodernists.
We had to hit him. Joey brought it up,
Had
and
to.
I was like, "Yeah, I gotta ask that question."
gotta.
That is a question that has sparked so many lively debates in my life.
It's everywhere, like especially on this show, though.
Yeah, it's not even just this show, man. It's anyway. Go to the bar and bring up this debate. Trust me,
Yeah,
it'll get
great.
fun.
What a great guest.
Yeah,
Rob?
we're gonna do some plugs and shit, but I want to say like publicly too. I said it to Mitch before the show. We gotta have more guests like Kyle and Derrick on, because I think these guys keep us grounded. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all agree or disagree. But it seems like you agree.
Nah, I got lost in the sauce, man. I was just listening. Like,
Yeah.
I know you and me, and like the one question I had for him, he fucking answered on his own without me even saying shit.
Right.
So that's why I was like, fuck it. I guess the only thing I had to say, he just fucking just ripped out of my hands
Bro,
and stole it from me.
I
love
have
it.
my.
I'm gonna get your super chat, Joey. Chill the fuck out.
I
Go
have
ahead.
my notepad full of just all the things like topics
Yeah.
to bring up and whatnot, and that was literally my whole thing. Like sitting here listening to him, like, okay, well there goes that. There goes. Okay, well you
Yeah.
know, like he's just bringing up everything himself. God damn.
Yeah, guests that carry the show, but also like
That's awesome.
it's not even, I won't even call it libertarian because I feel like I just don't want to do that. But it's like he just keeps the perspective real. Like it's like we got to talk about like, you know, like I feel myself doing it often. It's like I'm defending Trump all the time or saying that he's better than Kamala, but at the end of the day, he's a fucking liar. And it's good to have people like Kyle and Derrick on that remind us of that. And I think that's good. He keeps us grounded.
Yeah.
So here we go. Joey wants an answer to this question, and we should answer it for the audience. I missed last week. Did we get an update on what the drinking rules are going to be? Joey gave a $5 donation. No, Joey gave a $5 donation, so we'll drink to that.
Okay. All right.
I gave him 3 swigs for that one.
So to fill everybody in, the debate or the discussion was, how are we going to handle super chats and such? Is it every super chat gets a drink? Because on our drink-alongs, we saw how that could go very wrong. Rob was not here, but I'm telling you, bro.
Listen, to quote Leighton,
I can't imagine.
Here's the
quote
rule.
Leighton, don't be a whore for the price of a candy bar.
Here's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. What about
We're
2
gonna
candy bars?
Well, hold on. I think I'm going to come up with a solution everybody's going to like. Because I have 2 jobs in this whole, like, world. One of them is to come up with solutions for everybody's problems. The second one is to find the most evil ways to fuck people over when I can.
Great.
So-
We're screwed. What's up?
I thought. What about renting cars? I thought that was another.
That's not a real job. That's not a real
That's not a real job. That's not a real job. That's just my income producing
okay.
job.
So practicing law isn't a real job either. I got you.
No,
All right.
that's your income producing job. Your real job is making people laugh, Rob. If you
That's
weren't
right.
here opening our soul with a smile every day, I don't know where I'd be. What would I do
That's
without
right.
you, man?
That's goddamn right.
You're
He's-
the man, Rob.
He's not wrong. There's another
You know he
$5
fucked
to
y'all
drink
up.
everybody.
Yeah, let's
Yep.
drink it, boys. But what I'm saying is the bidding starts at $5. So Joey, $4.99, you hit it. After that, y'all better go up by at least $5 every time, or my fucking lips ain't coming to this bottle.
What?
No, I don't think that's a good solution.
I don't agree either.
I think what we had
What's
before.
your solution then?
Yeah, okay. So before what
Let's
we were doing is every time somebody donated, we would drink. That was a bad move because
That was a bad move.
we were
I
getting
agree.
dollar donations
was,
and we were having to drink.
That was gator
So-
ass.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is good. Joey's kind of setting the bar right now. I think of $4.99, $5, whatever you want to call it. I'm not gonna beat anyone up over pennies. I think a $5 because I think the reason he's doing $4.99, and Joey, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think the reason he's doing $4.99 is because that's what YouTube offers you as a default position. because $4.99 is more affordable than $5.
More.
So I think it's a default option for super chat.
I'm gonna get Jewy and count that penny. Fuck
I'm
him.
not counting pennies.
No,
I'm getting
We're
Jewy
about
here.
to vote right now, so fuck you, democracy is about to win.
Man, fuck you. Fuck your democracy. Son.
About
I ain't doing
$5
this shit.
wins. Okay, how about this?
$4.99.
How about this? How about
If
this?
it ain't $5 flat, my
How about
lips ain't
this?
touching this glass.
How about this?
$9.99.
How about this? We were going to talk about how we were going to structure the YouTube memberships, and the lowest YouTube membership was going to be $4.20. So any donation over $4.20 gets an automatic drink.
Yeah.
Now,
All right.
the real
God
question,
damn it,
yeah, I'm awesome like that. Next win. So during the live stream, we had a $50 donation. I think that's a good bar for chug your drink. Now, that being the caveat, here's a caveat, I guess. $50, that's the first chug. The second chug isn't $50.
Nah.
The second chug goes up to $75. So you
Hell
got to
yeah.
raise it. You got to raise it another $25. So if you want us to chug twice, 50 for the first, 75 for the second, 100 for the third, etc., etc., etc. If you're willing to drop that much money, I owe you a finish my drink.
What are we gonna do for $13.50?
Well, okay. So now you're getting into the membership conversation. So we're gonna open up YouTube memberships. So $4.20 for the first, maybe $13.50 for the second, because there's at least 3 tiers. There has to be.
Trace tiers.
So what's the third one then?
We'll figure that out in another episode.
2024.
Yeah.
2024.
Wrap it up.
No, we'll definitely figure that out.
Yeah.
I think the 420, anything above 420 deserves a drink,
420,
because
yeah.
some of us drink beer, some of us drink liquor.
Oh, I've learned my lesson. For election night, I'm drinking beer.
Yeah, I'm drinking beer.
I've learned my lesson.
Well, I'm not.
Oh, bring on the donations. Let's get Rob fucked up.
Fucking Rob.
I'm probably going to be posted up on the other side. I don't know.
Lord.
I'll probably be posted up in the actual. The studio's going to come together.
End imperialism. I saw earlier you were saying that you're some cute chick. We'll see. Doubt, but we'll see. So if you are new here, let me tell you. Yes, this is a 2-drink minimum for a reason. We will get fucked up. Come hang out with us on November 5th. We're going to
get drunk with us.
We are definitely going to get picked up.
If you're watching on Rumble, there's the high likelihood that there's
You're welcome here. You're welcome here. You figured it.
Fuck off and go talk about some good old Aboriginal titties over on Rumble. Thank you to our Rumble listener base.
Jesus Christ.
God, I love our Aboriginal
To think it all started with a conversation about Aboriginal titties.
Not just original, Aboriginal titties.
Aboriginal National Geographic titties.
I call them aboriginities.
Aboriginities, yeah.
You're stupid, dude. That's a dad joke, bro. I love it. All right, let's do some plugs, and then we'll go.
Butt plugs, let's go.
Alrighty. Well, I guess I'll start things off. Go check out 1776swag.com and at Mitch Connor JLo on the Twitter. And is there anything else that I could think of? I don't know. Go check out Rob Vinson, who, Rob, before you promote your comedy, I just want to say, Kill Tony's coming to Tampa, right?
It's the I think the Legends of Kill Tony are coming to Mobile.
Okay, so it's a Legends thing.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure if actual Kill Tony might be doing Amalie Arena. That might be something to look at. Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say, dude. If anything, we will treat you like our Rocky to get you on Kill Tony.
Yeah, it's a bucket pool, man. You never know.
I know. That's why I'm saying.
You could get a minute, right?
Yeah, I know. Every cannibal in the Congo, Rob.
What's your minute? What's your minute?
It'll probably be my ginger joke. I might hit him with 3 quick ones, and then ginger joke or can't wipe my ass joke. I have 2 clips, not 2 clips, but 2 like 10 or 15 minute shows that I need to clip up. So I'll be posting that on the channel soon. Be looking for that. Yeah, and you can follow that if you like stand-up comedy or Vincent comedy. there. And I just got back from New Orleans, where I had probably one of the best sets of my life. Got in front of some New Orleans comics, and I think they're going to be bringing me back there soon. So that's fun. Went there with the Everything's Funny podcast guys. So we can always do some cross promotion. They've been putting me on all their shows. I got a show November 1st in Pensacola and November 2nd in Daphne, Alabama. So follow me, and you can laugh. Follow us here. If you're, we're still trying to get to 600, stagnating a little bit. We dropped back. I think I started posting college football episops, and people were like,
"That's what did it." They're like,
"Yeah,
"Fuck you, bro."
We're not doing this."
I really don't think that's what it is. I think that like we bumped it over 500 with all of like the takes and stuff like that, and I think that kind of like raised it up, and people saw that I stopped doing that, and they were like, "This isn't what I signed up for."
Yeah.
So maybe I should bring it back. I don't know. We'll see.
Tim takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Whew. JoshuaHalafka.com. Come donate to the end of the campaign. Free Ross. LPF.org. Come donate to help us out as we push some good candidates across the finish line here. And a couple weeks, I'll have a interesting announcement coming up on the show. So stay tuned for that.
Whoa. Interesting announcement.
He's having twins, Basil.
No,
I wish.
fucking way.
Oh, dude.
Funny enough, one
You
of my
got me
coworkers' name
excited.
is Basil. That's fucking hilarious.
You got me excited.
It's an Austin
dude.
Powers reference. Austin Powers reference for sure.
Wait, hold on. Wait, which one are you? Rumble lady.
Basil!
Rumble lady, white or black? Let me know. No. She'll understand.
That's racist.
She'll understand. I'll show you boys after the show. I don't want to put her on blast like that.
I'm gonna
But white or black? Let me know. Anyway. I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be coming down to Florida. Look at that. I'm coming to see y'all boys for vacation. I'm
Coming
going
back down to the swamp where you
That's
haven't
right.
been.
What's up?
That's right.
Welcome back to the swamp, baby.
I'm coming in the aftermath. I'm going to come down there later this week. We are going to be starting to try to look at doing extra shows outside of Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that. I'm trying to set one up with Amy Lepore, but she's playing hard to get right now. So go to Archetypal Dork and tell her to stop being so difficult. Anyway, next Tuesday, we're going to have DL Cummins on. Josh says he's been quite spicy lately, so I'm interested to see Dad get spicy. Let's see what's happening on there.
It's going to be a Josh show. Let's get ready.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's going to be good, man. I'm interested to talk to DL. We haven't talked to him in a while. He's been requested on the show a bunch of times. And then, of course, November 5th, we're still working out the details as to when we're going live. This particular streaming platform restricts us to 6 hours per stream, so we might have to do. We might have to split it up. I'm considering taking off work myself, so there may be a long stream
I'm taking off
ahead of
work.
us. Yeah.
Sure, taking off.
Taking off work.
Yeah, I mean, even if I don't take off November 5th, because like here's the thing, right? The results are going to come in at like 7 or 8
Election
at
day
night,
is going to be a rager,
right?
bro.
So I can work that day, but the next day I'm going to be fucked up from all these donations and everything else.
Right.
So yeah, so the next day I might have to take off. That's the real question. But we're
Yeah.
definitely going to go longer than 6 hours. I'm guessing it's going to be a 12-hour stream, 7 to 7.
I'm still gonna try and hit up some local polling stations. And,
Yeah, I mean,
get some
yeah.
interviews in
Yeah,
there.
you can do that.
Yeah, let's try to get some man on the street shit. Let's try to hang out. Why 6 hours? Game streams get 10, 12. The reason is because of Emu, which is the platform that we use to do the multi-streaming, and they limit us at 6 hours. So we might have to stop. Like, I think maybe we do it 5-hour chunks. We do a 5 hour, and then we take a break for an hour and come back for the other 5, or something like that. We'll figure it out. We'll organize something behind the scenes. Get on the Discord. That's where you're going to find out what happens next. But yeah.
Easy enough.
And also recommend some more guests, because I really want to have more people on like Kyle and Derrick. I think that they're great guests, and we should have more. Forest Mommy, you're always welcome to come back. I'm not saying Toad it wasn't
Forest
great.
Mommy, come
All
on
those
down.
people were great. We need more guests though.
Wow,
Yes.
Tim! I
She,
can't believe you're literally burying all of our other guests.
And
Look,
and,
I want to ask Ryan to come back on the show. I want my room.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Let's get everybody, man.
Wait, which
I'm-
Ryan?
Ryan Buttoning.
Oh yeah,
Let's get the
Yeah.
Raccoon on.
And Imperialism suggested Steve from AM Wake Up, so we can
Bring him on too.
look him up and
Bring
see
them
what's
all
going
on.
on there.
Oh, somebody
I want
recommended Buds for Liberty or whatever. Tell that fucker to get back to me, okay?
Yo, Mitch, tell
whoever.
AP come on.
So, the funny story about DC. There was one guy from one of the Liberty podcasts who I met on the floor when all the shit was going down with like Chase and Rechtenwald and whatnot. I got the dude's number, and I agree. Yeah, you'll come on the show. It'll be great. I cannot remember that guy's name for the life of me. And I'm just like looking at my phone like, which one of these motherfuckers is the one who I talked to about coming on as a guest? Yeah, exactly, Josh.
What's
I don't
Austin
fucking
up to?
remember. Like, there was so much shit going on that night that I'm like, fuck. I barely even remember the haze that was that experience.
Hobbs, who was? Oh yeah, Hobbs was good.
Yeah.
Hobbs
yeah,
would be
he
good.
was
Hell
good.
yeah.
Hobbs was good.
Yeah, we'll get some more people. Yeah, Buds for Liberty or whoever. Yeah, Chuck Monkey, tell that fucker to get back to me.
I don't know how, but somehow that was racist, Tim.
Chuck Monkey? Well, he's
Chuck
married to
Monkey.
a black
Butt
chick.
fucker?
He's married to a
We're
black
really
chick,
going
so he
back.
can't be
Yeah, now
racist.
you're racist, Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
Fucking ginger.
You're the racist.
His wife gave me the end card, so.
Whoa, hey, oh.
You can say nigger now.
That's right, I can.
Damn.
Anyway, we all see you next Tuesday.